So, you want to share the joy of riding with a passenger, or better yet, someone has asked you to take them for a ride. That's great, but introducing someone to the world of two wheels is a big responsibility, and riding two-up is a very different dynamic than cruising around solo. So, in today's episode, we'll share some key things to consider before you blow someone's mind with their first motorcycle ride. Let's open up the shop manual. This episode of the Shop Manual is brought to you by Kershaw, my go-to unboxing knife and a tool I carry with me everywhere. Get 25% off your order at kershawknives.com with code 1TSM25. The first thing you need to do before welcoming someone onto your motorcycle is make sure it's in good mechanical condition. That means your brakes are healthy, the lights work, the drivetrain is in decent shape, and the tires have adequate tread and are properly inflated. You might even want to pump up your tires more than you would while riding solo. Your owner's manual or the sticker on your swing arm or under the seat will usually list the recommended PSI for two-up riding. That extra pressure helps keep the tires from deforming under the added weight of a passenger, which is important for maintaining the tire's shape and preserving handling. Another thing that's going to help maintain your bike's handling is adjusting your suspension, specifically the rear spring preload. When you add the weight of a passenger, the rear of the bike is going to squat, sometimes throwing off geometry so much that it can make the steering feel heavy or slow. If you spin in some rear spring preload, it's going to help maintain ride height, maintain cornering clearance, and steering behavior. If you're lucky, your bike will have a hydraulic preload adjuster. So adding rear spring preload is as easy as turning a knob. Some bikes may require you to use a spanner to turn the preload collar, which is going to be a bigger hassle. Now, it's not necessary to adjust your bike's suspension, but it's definitely going to help keep it handling the way you're used to instead of suddenly steering like a chopper. Now, obviously, before the passenger even gets on your bike, they've got to be wearing the appropriate gear. That means a helmeted jacket, gloves, jeans, and decent shoes are a must. And it's up to you to help them understand how important proper protective apparel is. Also, as experienced riders, we're used to sweating when it's hot and we're sitting in traffic, and we're used to getting chilly when it's cold out. But for folks that have only ever traveled by car, they are probably not prepared for that. So pick a day with decent weather and make sure that your passenger is wearing apparel that will not only keep them safe, but will keep them comfortable. Good communication with your passenger is another key aspect of a successful two-up experience. With that in mind, you might consider installing Bluetooth communicators on your helmets so you can talk freely as you ride. If that's not an option, at least explain to your passenger where you're going and how long you expect it to take, and check in with them anytime you come to a stop. Also, it's a good idea to instruct them on how to get on the bike, i.e. from the left side and only once the rider has both feet planted firmly on the ground. Let them know how to hold on, whether that's around your waist, on your shoulders, or using the rear grab handles. It's also important to warn them that any sudden movements, like shifting in the seat or turning to look behind you, affects the bike's stability. I usually summarize it by suggesting they stay centered in the middle of the seat, remain relaxed, and look over my inside shoulder while cornering. Pro tip. Your rear brake probably doesn't get a lot of use while riding solo, but it's helpful when you've got a passenger on board. The extra weight over the rear tire makes using the rear brake more effective, and it's useful for trimming your speed without causing fork dive like you get when you apply the front brake. Lightly dragging the rear brake is also super helpful as a stabilizing technique when doing slow maneuvers like U-turns or parking. And on the topic of brakes, keep in mind that anytime you have more weight on the bike, your braking distances will be longer. Then there's bike choice, which I know isn't going to be an option for everyone. But if you do happen to have access to, say, a naked bike, a sport touring bike, or any motorcycle with an upright riding position that was actually designed to carry a passenger, someone's going to be a lot more at ease on the back. Honestly, a scooter, or even something scooter adjacent, is a great option too, since they're small and unintimidating. Sadly, if you're ripping around on a sport bike with a postage stamp of a passenger seat, it's pretty unlikely that anyone is going to be comfortable or feel secure sitting on the tail of that thing. Whatever bike you end up using, aim to ride it as fluidly as possible. Riding smooth is always important, but it is doubly so when you have a movable mass on the back of the bike. If you're abrupt with your throttle or brake or sloppy with your shifting, that's going to result in a tense passenger, bumped helmets, and probably not a request to go for another ride. My MO when riding 2-up is to pretend it's raining. That means being very cautious and controlled and doing everything from accelerating to braking to cornering a little more gently and a little more carefully. And honestly, this is primarily for the passenger's benefit. We often feel we need to ride fast and aggressive to impress the pillion, but it's precarious being a passenger and likely still plenty thrilling even at a pace that seems boring to you as an experienced rider. So go gently and take it easy to ensure that your partner actually enjoys the experience. And my final suggestion is to put some thought into planning a good route. Taking a passenger along tree-lined streets or through beautiful landscapes or to a cool destination is going to make a much better impression than blasting down the highway or squeezing through traffic in the city. If you have the honor of introducing someone to riding on a motorcycle, that's a big responsibility. Make it a good ride.